All right, guys, thank you for that first carrier update this morning. It's time now to welcome Grace Sharkey, the woman of many talents, for our top story of the day. Grace, thank you for joining us on this Wednesday.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to see you guys.
Good to have you again, as always. And I feel like we can't stop talking about the Mid-America Trucking Show enough, right? We had Matt's last week. Yourself, John Kingston, and Clarissa Hawes were there. We've talked a little bit kind of about the recruiting aspect, about the getting together in person aspect. But I really want to get your take on the tech aspect there. That's something that you're super interested in. And with so many carriers there, so many independent owner ops there, let's kind of get your impression about technology overall at the conference.
Yeah, there was a lot of different technology providers there, especially when it comes to in-cab capabilities like ELDs, things of that nature. But there were a few that really surprised me. So one company that I got some time to spend with is, Amazon, but a core of them called Amazon Glow. I'm actually planning on doing an article on it. I have an interview scheduled with them next week, and hoping to have them on a few of the shows as well. But what it is basically they've created this gaming system that goes inside the truck so that parents can play games with their kids, read books to them on the road, and interact with their families while they're driving. It's really cool. Amazon's created a number of different games within the system, and it has a camera and a whole setup that they just put in the truck, and then they can easily spend time with their kids at home. So that one I really loved because it really shows that they're trying to focus their time and attention on the different reasons why drivers leave the industry, right? Like a lot of them want to make sure that they're at home every night with their families. That's not completely possible with long haul road conditions. So I really thought this was an innovative way for carriers to talk to their families and still have that connection. And it was really minimum fees, easily to install. So that was one of my favorites that I saw there. Another one is a guest that we actually had on the show, and then John Kingston wrote about as well, is RoadSync. Like a couple, or you could look at relay payments. They are a system that helps drivers and fleets manage their payments, whether that's fuel cards, whether that's breakdown fleet checks, whether that is sorry about that. Whether that's lumber fees at warehouses. That's a huge one, especially when we talk about making sure that drivers are spending as much time on the road. I can't tell you how many times a lumber fee comes up unnoticed. So, of course, that was a really great one that we saw there too. And then in general, there just seemed to be a large amount of these fintech type of companies, right? Just like RoadSync, just like Relay, where they're trying to manage the payment systems more. So we've talked about it that fintech is kind of on the rise here in freight tech. And after seeing a number of them at MATS, I'm just excited to see how many more developments we get out of companies like RoadSync, like Relay over this next year.
Grace, I'm interested in your thoughts, or even the driver's thoughts that were at MATS, about all this new technology. If we know that we're coming at it from looking at like the tech provider side of things, they're like, oh, this is going to change a driver's life. This is going to change the industry. But a lot of the drivers sit there and say, I don't want to have to deal with another thing to integrate with. I don't want to have to add another camera, another this in my cab, blah, 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 right? It's kind of hard for drivers to adopt this tech revolution. Did you get any feelers about what the drivers were thinking about these tech advancements, or at some of those tech booths? Did you see a lot of drivers there?
I did see a lot of drivers there. The one thing I will critique the industry on a little bit is there was a number of companies that were promoting themselves as applications that were more of portals. So I think what I'm happy to see is that a lot of different companies are finding different ways to enhance their capabilities, make themselves more accessible, not just to the driver, but to the managers of their fleets as well. there was a couple companies that just diving into their technology had a number of apps. One in particular I remember looking into that had like 13 different 13 different apps that a driver would have to install. So um, hopefully the drivers are doing their due diligence before they're working with some of these companies. But I think the ones with the biggest booths and the biggest presence at Mats as a whole, were very, very good at engaging drivers and having great discussions. Well, one in particular, Jamie 360, the Sirius booth was right next to them. They were spending, I was watching their reps. They did an incredible job of showing exactly how 360 works, how it can really improve the driver's lifestyle. I actually spent some time over there as well because they have updated since I last used the tool, and they are becoming very, very good at managing a driver's day. And I got to talk to a couple of operations reps with them as well. And not only were they liking their job better than past experiences, but were telling me that drivers are starting to, this app is starting to be very sticky for the company, and drivers are spending more and more time on it as they start to add, for example, like any load that you take will show you the restaurants nearby and places to park. So it's thinking more holistically, much like the drivers are now.
And Grace, can you dig on that a little bit more? Because when I start thinking about all these different apps, really the enhancement for the driver experience is going to be huge. But also, and I also thinking about, trends from an economic standpoint, things go up, things come down. Are you seeing that there's a lot of technology that's really being pushed out for this current trend? And are there any apps that are really saying, hey, this is just a good application, good technology, whether we're in an up market or a down market or really any point in the supply chain?
Yeah, I think that especially when you look at the freight marketplaces, the apps that are allowing drivers to bid and to manage the next load well, and show them the amount of deadhead that they're going to be recurring in a certain area. Those are the ones that are thinking more forward, especially as we enter these times where their rates are going to really start to matter, and how much money they're making is really going to start to matter. I'd say Convoy, for example, they had a whole section, a number of drivers were in there, and I talked to a lot of them too. They really, really like the bidding process of Convoy and the way that it negotiates with drivers. There are some that I won't explicitly name out here that don't do the best at making sure that the driver feels like they don't have to call in. So a lot of times these applications, let's say they're bidding back and forth. Let's say they bid $100 more than the rate that's posted. There's a number of these applications that they're just so new to learning the bidding system that they'll come back with maybe $5 more. And the driver's like, I don't have time to sit in my cab and haggle over $5 when that's not even getting close at all to the rate that I need. So they start then calling into the company, and it's just a waste of time. So I think the ones that are really good at managing that bidding process, and B, the expectations of a load, like what's your parking situation once you're done with it, what's the turnaround to the next load, what's your deadhead like, those areas that are often waste are going to really hold out in the long run.
Grace, it's so great to hear about all these tech advancements presented at MATS, and I can't wait to see what comes out of TIA conference next week as well on the tech side. Before we let you go today, let's talk a little bit about your point of sale episode that's coming out today. What have you got on tap for us?
Yeah, so I actually have a company that I met at Manifest coming on. So talk about people that we met at these conferences. Point Pickup. So what they do is they help facilitate companies' last mile delivery systems. They are almost the outsourcer of the outsourcer. So, one of their companies that they work with, for example, is Walmart. Do they do all of Walmart's last mile deliveries? No, but they help facilitate those specific regions regions and areas that are really hard for Walmart facilities to find. So that's what we're going to be talking about today with them, and that should be a really fun conversation. Tom is a really unique individual and has got a really good grasp on the last mile delivery market as a whole. So that should be a good conversation.
Awesome, Grace. It's always great having you on. I don't know where you find the time, but thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, guys.
All right, you can catch Grace this afternoon on Point of Sale right here on FreightWaves TV. And while you're at it, head to freightwaves.com, subscribe to her community's newsletter, as well as the rest of our community's newsletters as well. It's great content that you don't want to miss.
That's right. But right now, speaking of great content you don't want to miss, we have Nick Austin with our first weather hit of the morning.